Hello Bookish Friends, and welcome to another bookish video. I am Kathleen, and today I'm going to be talking about the 25 books that I want to read for 2025. So let's jump into it. So the first book that I'm adding to my 25 for 2025 list is If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan. And this is the follow-up to If He Had Been With Me by her. I read this maybe a year or so ago, and it was such an emotional, impactful read for me about just young teenage love, kind of a coming of age story. And I find it to be so emotional, so interesting, and just so heartfelt and poignant. And when I discovered that there was a second book that was going to be talking in Phineas's voice, sharing Finn's story and his perception of how things went down, I was very interested in reading it. Unfortunately, I kind of forgot about that book with all the other books that I was reading in 2024. A lot of things happened. That book fell to the wayside. I think it came out in February of 2024, which I was in a horrible reading slump during that time period. So it was not going to happen anyway. So now I want to, for this year, go ahead, read this book so that I can just kind of like put or get some closure from this series and see through his perspective kind of how things went down. And I don't know, I think that'll be very interesting. So I can't wait to read that this year. The second book is Wade in the Water by Nyana Nkrumah. And this is something that has been on my want to read for quite some time. And I just never got around to really focusing on reading it. But I definitely do want to read this story. The second book that I am excited to read this year is Wade in the Water by Nyana Nkrumah. And this is a book that has been on my want to read list for quite some time. And I want to make sure that I am reading these books that I'm just adding to my want to read list and they're not just stockpiling there for years and decades. So I want to make sure that I read this book this year. So basically, from what I've gathered from the synopsis, we're following an 11-year-old girl named Ella in the 80s who lives in a segregated town in Mississippi and develops a kind of strange and peculiar friendship with an older white woman who begins to tutor her. However, there are secrets that this elderly white woman, who is named Ella, who's not Ella, but is named Miss James. Sorry, she's named Miss St. James. There are secrets that she is kind of withholding, and these secrets, of course, as they always do, are going to come to light, and it's going to create drama and a fiasco, pretty much. So I'm interested to read the drama, see the fiasco, get all the tea, and read this very interesting historical fiction. The next book on my list is We Are All So Good at Smiling by Amber McBride. The thing that initially drew me to this book was that the cover was absolutely stunning, and I was immediately drawn to the book, immediately. But upon reading the synopsis, my interest has been further piqued, and I'm really interested in reading what seems to be a very emotional and heartfelt story. So in this story, we follow friends Whimsy and Fairy as they connect due to their similar mental health struggles. And through their connection, they're able to confront some of their darkest fears. So I really want to read this. There is going to be a lot of mental health representation in this story, which I think is so important to read about these kind of stories, especially for the Black community, since the mental health is something that's very touchy in the Black community. So I think this is going to be a beautiful exploration of that. Next up is The Wife Before by Shanora Williams. I have had this on my want to read list on Goodreads for far too long, and I saw a video on, I think, Instagram where someone was talking about this book being really, really good, and it was something that you had to read, and I was like, say less. So I'm making it my goal to read it this year. So this story follows Samira Wilder, who is at a crossroads in her life. She's unhappy with her job, unhappy with her life situation, and she's just frustrated trying to figure out the next step. Then she meets Roland Graham, who is a wealthy man, and they begin this whirlwind romance. He sweeps her off her feet. They get married and go back to his home in Colorado. And it's there that she discovers these journals or diaries from his late ex-wife. And she begins to realize or kind of question whether her death was all that it seemed, and that maybe she was actually murdered. And there is, of course, a fallout that comes from that. So it sounds very interesting. I think this was, I don't know who mentioned, or maybe I read something in the reviews, that this is like a retelling of the classic Rebecca. And I don't care, I'm here for it, and I'm gonna read it. Next book on my 25 for 2025 is actually not one book, it's going to be a series, and it's a quartet. And that is An Ember in the Ashes Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. And the reason that I've added this to my list of must-reads this year is because I made the mistake in November of reading Air, not knowing anything about this previous series. I knew nothing. I was deaf, dumb, blind. And I later come to find out that actually Air is set 20 years after the events of this series. And I was like, oh, that is why I am confused. That is why I'm trying to figure out what is going on. That is why. So I'm going to correct that egregious sin. I'm going to read this quartet so that I can reread Air, and I can get in all of those yummy Easter eggs and just be part of this fandom and really enjoy and just explore this world and be prepared for the release of the following book in the Air duology. The next read on my list is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I've heard so many flipping good things about this book, and I am so hyped to read it because of all the things that people have been saying about it and how it's gotten so many good reviews from my favorite booktubers and people on Bookstagram. And I am excited to read this, and I'm also excited and I want to read this year because I do believe there is going to be a film adaptation that's going to be released this year starring Ryan Gosling. So I want to make sure that I get this read before that comes out, so I'll be all caught up and I can experience all the fun with everyone else. So in this story, we read about Ryland Grace as he wakes up on a spaceship and he has a very fuzzy memory about what he's doing there, and he doesn't really know anything. But he slowly begins to remember things, and he slowly begins to remember that there is this mission that he's set on, a mission that will save Earth and save humanity as he knows it. And he's just trying to piece everything together so that he can accomplish this mission, even if he has to do it alone. So yeah, can't wait to dig into that. That sounds really, really good. And I do want to read more sci-fi this year than I did last year because sci-fi is one of my favorite genres, and I did not read enough sci-fi last year. So I'm definitely going to make up for it this year. And yeah, can't wait to read this. The next book is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandra Dumas. And listen, I cannot wait to read the full story of Edmond Dante because this has been a story that when I was young, I read like an abridged version of it, and I just loved it. It is the ultimate revenge story. It is the ultimate comeback. It is the ultimate comeuppance. Like, whoo! I can't wait to read it and really digest it and see it from an adult perspective, and the unabridged version, which is a behemoth to say the least. But I'm super excited to take this task on of reading this classic, and I just can't wait to dive into it. So in case you don't really know what this story is about, it's about Edmond Dante, who was imprisoned for a crime that he didn't commit. And instead of falling into despair, he spends his time in that prison plotting about the ultimate payback and how he is going to get the three men who put him there. And if that doesn't convince you to dive into this to see all of the craziness that's gonna happen, I don't know what will, but I can't wait to read. Next we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I read The Starless Sea last year, and that book was so amazing. Such an amazing and just magical and lyrical and lush experience. The prose was perfection. The storytelling just immersive and just so imaginative and so unique. And I am quite excited to read another work by this author. And yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into The Night Circus because it is written as beautifully as The Starless Sea was. I will have a fabulous time with this. Next up is Sky Full of Elephants by Sibyl Campbell. I have seen so many booktubers and bookstagrammers talk about this book and mention it in their wrap-ups and their favorite books of the year. And yeah, say less. I want to read it. I want to experience it for myself. And I'm looking forward to doing just that. So in this story, we follow Charles Burton, who is a college professor, and he is teaching following the climactic event of all the white people on Earth walking into a body of water. I mean, can you imagine? And he receives a call from someone that he really didn't know or was unsure about existing, which is his daughter. And she is reaching out to him for help because she witnessed her family walk into the lake behind her home and is traumatized by that. And this is her last ditch effort to try to enlist the help of her father to help her find some family that she suspects is still alive in Alabama. And we're gonna follow their adventures as they kind of navigate this country, they navigate this different world, this terrain, and all that they see in this kind of new world order. And yeah. Next up is again another series that I want to read and complete in 2025, and that is of course the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because how can I say that I love fantasy and I've never read this trilogy? The fuck? How can I say that? So yeah, I'm gonna get on it. I'm going to read this trilogy cover to cover, stern to stern, and I know that I'm gonna enjoy it. I know that I'm gonna love it. Can't wait to dive into it. Next up is another classic, and it is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Don't ask me why I just rolled my R, because he is Russian. Don't ask me, I said. So I'm excited to read this because again, I'm really trying to get back on my classics game. Anyways, I'm excited to read this book, and it's another one that's going to be a behemoth because she girthy, she thick, and yeah, looking forward to reading that. So in Anna Karenina, we are following Anna Karenina as she is in this loveless, just dead-end marriage to a man that she just cannot stand. And she begins a passionate affair with Count Vronsky, and there is, of course, as there always is in these things, some fallout and some drama, and it's a big fiasco and all the things that kind of come of this affair. And we're going to be reading about that. And I'm excited for the drama and the tea and just, you know, people being people. Next up is another girthy, thick classic, which is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And I'm excited to read this too, because I hear that it is the perfect gothic book, and I love gothic stories. I love gothic vibes. They're so atmospheric and just, I love it. And in this book, we are following a young woman who works as a lady's maid and who is instantly swept up in a romance with a wealthy man who is named Maxim de Muir, Maxim de Winter is his name. Well, anyways, she gets swept up in a romance with him. They fall in love and get married, and he takes her back to his estate in the country. But she quickly realizes that the shadow of his ex-wife, or his late wife, is haunting her. And yeah, it's threatening her new marriage. So yeah, we got that going on. We got another kind of, you know, whirlwind romance with an older man who got money, but he got secrets, and he got a dead wife. And yeah, we got another situation on our hands, but I can't wait to read about it. Next up is Feybound by Sarah El Arafi, and I need to get on this because I think the next installment, Cursebound, is coming out this year, so I gotta get on it and I gotta read this. ASAP. So in this story, we are following Yiran, who is an elven warrior, and she commits or does a terrible mistake that causes her to be banished from the elven lands, her and her sister Lettel, and they are forced to live in the wilderness. But they stumble upon the Fae, and they are, as what usually typically happens when these people fall into the Fae court, they're, you know, the Fae are just some really mysterious, strange, but species, and that you just get drawn to them. I don't know what it is about the Fae. I really don't know what it is about the Fae, but you are drawn to them. And so we're gonna see them get caught up in that Fae mess and in that Fae life and all of the fun events that will befall them because of it. And again, I am here for it. Next up is Swift River by S.C.J. Chambers, which is another historical fiction that is like a coming of age story. So we're following Diamond Newberry and her mom as they are struggling with life, and she is dealing with being bullied because her father left her and her mother, and she's also being bullied because she is the only Black person in that town. So she's living and facing a lot of trauma and dealing with a lot of just negativity from the people in her town. And amidst all this, her mom comes up with this brilliant plan to help him out financially by working to declare her father dead so that she can collect on his life insurance. But before all that madness can take place, she receives a letter from a long lost relative that she did not know that she had, which is going to reveal some secrets about her father, and we're going to see how all that plays out. So looking forward to reading this book as well. Next up is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. And I know that I'm late to this bandwagon. I am late to the game because everyone has been talking about this cozy fantasy for at least the past 2 years. But I don't know. I wasn't really receptive to the idea of cozy fantasy. I thought that was like, I don't know. It didn't seem interesting. But I'm ready to try something new, something different, feeling a little experimental. You know, we'll give it a try. Next up is Where They Last Saw Her by Marcy R. Rendon. And in this book, this is by an Indigenous author, and I have not read enough books by Indigenous authors. And so I definitely want to make sure that I'm diversifying my reading and reading from, you know, Indigenous authors this year. So I'm excited about reading this title. In this story, we have Quill, who is a wife, a mother, a friend, and she has noticed that there are a lot of women that disappear and are taken from her community, and she decides to take a stand and to push back against the fact that these women are disappearing and that no one seemingly cares about it. And we're gonna follow her journey as she takes a stand and she fights back against this system that is so harmful and detrimental to the Indigenous women in her community. Next up is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and I don't know if I remember this correctly, but I swear someone said that this book was like a female rage book, and I said, say less. Say absolutely less. So in this story, Essen comes home, and she comes home to a tragedy where her husband has brutally murdered her son and has abducted her daughter. And in the midst of all of that personal drama happening, as if that isn't enough, the Sane's empire collapses, and there is just craziness everywhere. But if that wasn't enough for basically society and an entire empire to collapse, a great red rift tears across the continent known as the Stillness, causing debris and ash to cover the sky and surround the world in darkness. And it is this chaos that she has to go out and travel to find her daughter and rescue her daughter and bring her back to safety. She has to endure all this madness to accomplish this mission. She's determined. She's hell-bent. She doesn't even care that all this is happening because the only thing that's on her mind is getting to her daughter. I cannot wait to read this book because it sounds so very, very good. It sounds like it's giving the indomitable spirit of women and how we will burn the world down when it comes to ours and our own, and I'm set for it. Next up, we have The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali, and This is a story that caught my eye during the whole 2024 Goodreads nominees. I saw it as one of the nominees for historical fiction. I saw a lot of people on BookTube talking about it and how amazing it was. And I'm a sucker for a person reviewing and hyping up a book. I cannot wait to read this title and to just discover what's happening in this book. And I'm actually predicting this is going to be a 5-star read, and I'm super excited. So this novel takes us to 1950s Tehran, where 7-year-old Ellie lives a life of comfort and luxury. That is until her grandfather's kind of sudden and unexpected passing that pushes her and her mom out of their comfort zone, having them relocate to another location so that they can basically survive. But she is kind of struggling, living with kind of the, I don't want to say it's wrath, but living with the disappointment and the frustration of her mother and how she's probably inadvertently taking out on her daughter. And she is desperate to find a friend that she can kind of relate to and she can have experiences with so that she doesn't feel so alone and lonely. Lo and behold, when she starts school, she's able to befriend a girl named Homa, and they become super close. They do everything together, they play together, they dream together, and they're just super, super tight-knit. That is until her mother is presented with an opportunity to return back to her higher station in life, to more luxury and comfort, and she seizes upon it, separating these girls for many, many, many years until they kind of, by chance, meet each other in their teen years, but they're both dramatically and drastically different people. And it is this reappearance of Homa in Ellie's life that will change and alter the trajectory of both of their lives forever. To read this. I love stories that have those kind of elements in them. It sounds like it's something that's going to explore classism, something that is going to have a lot of political unrest and upheaval in it. And I'm very interested to read it and learn more. Next up, we have The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And while I've heard nothing but amazing things about this collection of essays, I'm gonna be honest. I'm getting outside of my comfort level because I don't typically like reading collections of essays. It's just not my thing. But because I've heard nothing but tremendously amazing things about this book, I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone for a good read, something that's going to be impactful and thought-provoking and just challenge my perspective. And that is what I am hoping is going to happen in this book. This book is basically exploring the concept of how the stories and narratives that we create and that we build, how they impact our lives, immediate reality. And that sounds like a very interesting concept to dive into and to understand. And we see him as he travels from Senegal, South Carolina, and Palestine, and kind of what he learns from these communities, these people, and these events. And I am anxious to find out more. Now we have This Cursed House by Del Sandine. Yeah. I want to make it another goal to read more horror because I don't really read that much horror because I'm squeamish and I'm scary and I'm a baby. But there are some really good books, I do believe, that can be found in the horror genre. And yeah, I'm gonna definitely explore the genre a little bit more this year. And this is gonna be one of the books that I am going to read in my attempts to do that. So as I've seen from the synopsis, this story is set in 1962 and we meet Gemma Barker, who is clairvoyant and can see ghosts and spirits. And she is itching to change her life and she is wanting to run away from these apparitions that she can continually see and just make a fresh start in a new life. When she gets this invitation to work for the Duchamp family in New Orleans, she jumps at the chance for that fresh start that she is so craving. But upon arriving there, she finds it's not all that it's cracked up to be, and the family is not all that they are cracked up to be. They are very light and they are white passing black people, and they think that they're a little bit better than they are, and they look down on her. And in addition to that, she realizes that the whole reason of getting her down there to work for them was because they know of her clairvoyance and they believe that she can break the curse that is threatening their family. But the more that she uncovers about the secrets and the hidden truths of this family that dates back centuries, the more she realizes that her livelihood has become tied up to them, and that if she doesn't break this curse, it can be deadly for her as well. So Does that not sound interesting? Another horror book that I've heard a lot about from booktubers in 2024 is Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. And this is kind of described as kind of like a weird, really eerie horror book. And I don't know, I'm putting myself out there and reading that because it could go really, really good, and I could think it's a really good, scary, traumatizing time, or it could go really bad and I think it's a scary, traumatizing time in a negative way. So we'll see how this goes. Next up is Recursion by Blake Crouch. I read Dark Matter, loved it, loved the series, loved the book, love his writing, love everything about him. I think he's gonna be one of my new favorite authors. So I'm really excited to read this book by Blake Crouch because I've heard a lot of good things about it as well. So in this story, we're following NYC cop Barry Sutton as he is investigating this phenomenon where people are driven insane by memories of a life that is not actually theirs. And in the midst of all this, we have neuroscientist Helena Smith, who is in the throes of creating this technology that will basically allow us to relive specific memories in our lives. Most likely more impactful and important memories like your first kiss, the day you got married, when you met your first love, or being present when a loved one is passing away or as they pass away. But while Barry is investigating this phenomenon that is implanting false memories in people's brain or whatnot, he stumbles across a formidable foe, which is actually a force that not just attacks the mind, y'all, but actually attacks the past. And basically he has to team up with that neuroscientist so that they could try to figure out what the frack is going on before it unmakes the world and alters reality permanently. So that sounds good. Lastly, I want to read in 2025 The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is another book that I've heard amazing things about. Actually, I've heard polarizing things. Either you love it or you hate it. And I don't know, I think I'm going to love it because when do I not love a book? It's so flippin' rare. In this story, we are following Addie LaRue as in, I think it's 1714 France. She basically makes a deal where she is immortal, but because of that immortality, she basically is never going to be remembered by anybody that comes across her. That is the cost for her immortality. So she lives, she does her life, she goes through things, and then 300 years later, she stumbles into a bookstore where she meets the person working there and they actually remember her. So that sounds intriguing and I can't wait to read it. Those were all 25 of the books that I want to read in 2025. I cannot wait to come back to this video at the end of 2025 and see if I was able to accomplish reading all of these books and take them off my list. I think that I will. So yeah, I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next time.